Welcome back to the Matter of Facts podcast on the Prepper Broadcasting Network. We talk prepping, guns, and politics every week on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Go check out our content at mwfpodcast.com on Facebook or Instagram. You can support us via Patreon or by checking out our affiliate partners. I'm your host, Phil Rabley, and my co-host, Andrew Bobo, is on the other side of the mic, and here's your show. And welcome back to Matter of Facts podcast. There are three in the studio today. We have Bonnie from Bonbons Guns from Instagram joining us.
Hi.
So let me get the administrative stuff out of the way first. First of all, if you're a patron, thank you so much for putting up with our nonsense week after week, and I hope you're enjoying the show. If you're not a patron, we'd certainly appreciate it if you consider helping support the show. If not, keep listening for free. We won't judge you. And third but not least, there is currently a hell of a weather event going on over my house. So boys and girls, if I suddenly disappear, it's because there's a power outage and I have prepperish stuff to do. I know. Horrible excuse, but, blame Mother Nature, not me, because I'm not the one that ordered the lightning storm that's currently trying to blow my roof off.
I mean, it's only 62 here. So.
I ain't worried about the heat. Worried about the power outage.
Nah.
So, Bonnie, Andrew and I think, both started following you on Instagram quite a while ago. Like, there's not a whole truck ton of women in the firearms community to begin with, and honestly, unlike a lot of people that just take guns to flat ranges, like, you've actually made it pretty well known that, like, you spend a fair amount of time actually training and doing things that the average gun owner doesn't do, and that's noteworthy in and of itself. But, like, I'm curious what got you started in firearms, if you don't mind telling us.
Oh, no, of course I don't mind. So I started, it might be, lost count, but it could be like 3.5 to 4 years ago. And growing up, we had, my dad had a gun and all that, but we were not really exposed to it. So what really got me started is a outcome of a bad relationship, pretty much. So, divorce now and all that. So it was just for self-protection, to defend myself and to keep. I was kind of a little scared, at the time. So it was like, I need to buy a gun, keep in the house and, in case anything happens. So that's what really got me into it, the first step. And then I think I had it for several months before I even did any kind of real training. I did the initial proficiency test that you have to do, just shooting at indoor range and all that. But then I got talking to a friend of mine, asking for suggestions for instructors in the area. He threw me a few. He gave me a name, and I did my first class. And I think that I got hooked pretty much from that moment. So I set myself to do, I think I started initially doing a class every 2 weeks. So I was going to do, a couple of hours every 2 weeks with him, just to get proficient. Because from the first class on, I realized, man, I have a gun, but I don't really know anything about kind of the safety aspect or shooting it proficiently. And if I want to keep myself and because I have an 8-year-old, if I want to keep us safe, I need to know how to be safe and be proficient. So that got me started, and I really, really enjoyed it. That's a part of it, but it was an ongoing journey that I set myself to do. And I'm not going to stop until, I think at the time I was like, I'm not going to stop until I'm proficient enough. But then I realized the more I get out and train, I realized that I'm never going to be proficient enough. There's no such thing. It's an ongoing lifetime journey. So
you came to the conclusion that there is no end point. It's just I am more proficient than I used to be, and that self-propagates. That never stops.
It never stops. And the other thing too is the more you train, I see that the more you see that there is to learn. It's there.
Oh, yes.
You think it's just going to a range and shooting at a target, but it's not. And that's the thing. The more classes I've taken, I've done from, I think I started off just doing at the range, just getting to a level where I was proficient enough to get into movement and all that. But when I got there, then I did some BCQB. I did injured shooter. I did low light. and then a combination of all those. So the more you get into that, you realize that this is like the closest you'll get to real life. And I did some force on force too. So it's like that's the closest it gets to real life, and it's scary because it makes you realize that, oh my gosh, if anything were to happen out there, like real life, it's going to be similar to this, not going to like a range and doing a
A static range.
range.
Yeah.
You know,
So it kind of woke me up to the fact that this is the real stuff. Doing all of this, all of these classes with reputable instructors, and it's like there's a lot to learn, and these are just levels of it. And there's additional levels that keep on adding on that you realize, you're only going to get to that if you keep training.
Well, and the cool part of what you're describing is that, like, biochemically, your brain doesn't know the difference between simunitions and really getting shot up until it happens. Like, the amount of stress that a legit training class, whether it's CQB, whether it's firearms training, whether it's jujitsu, any of that, but the kind of stress you can put your body and your mind under, your brain doesn't know how to interpret that as anything other than I'm under attack. And so you get accustomed through the constant training, you get accustomed to that level of stress to the point where it probably doesn't. If you are anything like the majority of people I've taken out shooting the first time you hear a gunshot go off, there's that little flinch deep inside of you. You can't stop. And then you get to a point at some point where it just doesn't bother you anymore. Like sitting at a gun range, concussion, noise, gun smoke is just part of the fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and I did also last year, I did with my buddy who runs his training business. And part of that, he does some ECQC skill builder. So I did, I think, the level 1. And, that stuff is, being attacked by, and I think I did it with a guy, I was paired with a guy that was like, way bigger than me. So, but real life too, women are mainly realities. You're probably going to be attacked by a guy who's bigger and more powerful and stronger than you. So, and I was like, I had no way. I couldn't get out. I couldn't get myself out from under him. Got my gun out, for doing force on force, and that was it. So it's these kind of training experiences that make you realize you got to get out there really as a gun owner. It's not just about owning a gun, keeping it in the house. It's knowing what to do with it. And if I think the reality to talking to my friend, we've been talking about it a lot, is like there are so many people out there that they own a gun, they carry, but they're scared of it. You can really carry if you're scared of it, because it's going to control you. You need to be able to control that gun, or you're going to cause a lot more damage than you probably,
Well, and the other thing that more than one trainer has discussed, matter of fact, a trainer we have on the show very often, Trek, has said that like when the only tool in your toolbox is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. So in other words, like if a firearm owner's, if the most training he's ever received is draw a gun, punch holes in paper, that's the only way he knows to deal with a problem. He doesn't know he's never learned hands-on. He's never learned how to conceal his body and move. He's never learned how to get off the X. He's never learned how to de-escalate, which is something that like I preach all the time to people. I'm like, if your gun comes out of the holster, you've already lost one fight. Mm-hmm. Because the first fight I fight is not to have to take this gun out of the holster, de-escalate the problem, and go home. Like, my goal is not to fight with anybody. My goal is to go home to my wife and daughter. And if I can do that without firing a shot, I am a lot happier person than if I have to talk to people in polyester uniforms after I drop somebody.
Yeah, I know. And that's it. Yeah, that's the thing. Because, realistically, if you look at even like what's out there on the news, it's like a lot of this stuff happens in parking lots, gas stations, or look public places where it's a moving environment. So if all you know is just shooting at a target that's in front of you, you never learn how to deal with a moving environment around you. At a gas station, there could be people behind the suspect around you. It's like where are you going to point that gun? Are you aware that there are people that it may hurt behind, the suspect or anything like that? It's because I remember the first times that I did it, I was like, okay, killed an innocent person there, kill another one there. It's scary. It literally scared me that I could, you know, hurt someone, and this is on a range with cardboard targets, but
Yeah,
exactly.
and that's where, I mean, just knowing, just like the 4 rules of gun safety. I mean, knowing your target and what's beyond it. And there's been multiple times where I have, and it's interesting when you see some of these news stories coming out of people with using their firearm in self-defense, and analyzing it and dissecting what they did right and maybe what they did wrong. But there was a mall shooter. I remember, not the guy that downed the guy at like 40 yards. There was another one a couple years ago, and he actually had a shot on the suspect, but he didn't take it because there was people behind the suspect.
Okay.
And he noticed that. And I remember reading that yeah, he didn't take the shot because there's people behind him. And like that right there, like imagine if he would have took that shot. And yeah, he downed the suspect, but in turn, he injured somebody else behind the person. Or his shot missed and hit somebody. And one, he's got to live with that for the rest of his life, possibly injuring / maybe killing somebody. But also now he's got to answer for homicide, where you just pulled your firearm in self defense. Now you have to justify yourself in a homicide, and to somebody who was innocent. So yeah, definitely, it just moving. And it's always fun, like watching some of your stuff, because you get off the X, and it's really interesting watching. And you don't really see a lot of it too much right now, with people just posting that stuff. And really it's a lot of, and honestly, you don't see a lot of women doing that though. And that's what's interesting, is you see like you're down in the mud, and you're going across the barricades, and you're shooting from vehicles and stuff like that. And it's just nice to see people doing that and not just on a static range. And that's the thing, is there's not many places, unfortunately. I mean, in Michigan, there's not many places around here that do, that will let you get off the static range. But if you can find a trainer, if you can find a place to do it, I've done a couple of ones where, like, yeah, it's step off the X, move, communicate, do whatever you got to do. And it's worth it. It really opens your eyes.
Yeah, it does, because it's at that moment, like in your head, before you do the drill, you're like, yeah, I got this down. I know what I have to do. I know all the safe, how to do it safely and all that. And then you find yourself, it's like go time, and your brain just goes mush. And it's like, you find yourself doing all these things. And I remember an instructor said, I think one of the drills is like, would you do this in this scenario? Would you ever do that? And everyone said no. And then when it was go time, everybody messed up. And he was like, and it's just because it's like, it's go time, and it's force on force, right? And it's just, if you don't train it, yeah. So that's the important thing of like training and repetition, and it's that repetition, I think, that got me to a point where I think that force on force I did that time, it was the repetition that I did with certain manipulations or like malfunctions that got me, I was right into it, and I was trying to like get out of the fight and not let this person get the gun off of me. And I had a malfunction with the gun, and it was like I didn't even realize what I was doing. I remember almost nothing of what happened during that until I watched the video. And I'm like, I actually cleared the malfunction during this whole thing, and I ended up winning that round. I lost the other one, but because of that repetition that I always do, and then your brain just, during these scenarios of like the adrenaline is running and everything, is just, it comes natural.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, they say that during times of stress, you go down to the lowest level of your training.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting, because like even myself, doing some of the classes that I've done, and it's like, okay, you'll watch one guy go through and he'll do the scenario, and you'll say, okay, yeah, he like, and then you'll hear the instructor, okay, yeah, you need to do this better, this better, this better. And you could be like, and there's been times where I've been the first one up, and there's been times where I've been like the third or fourth one up, and you see what everybody else is doing wrong, and you're like, okay, I'm not doing that. And then all of a sudden, like the buzzer goes off, and you get into that mode of like, okay, shooting targets and stuff like that, and moving, and possibly clearing hallways, doing what you got to do. And all of a sudden, you're like, after you're done, you're thinking back, like you're replaying the camera back, and you're like, I did the exact same thing that guy did.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, man. And so, but you take that, and then you take it and you learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next time through, you notice, okay, I didn't do that, but I did something else. Like, and that's the thing is the time to learn this stuff is now, not when someone is presenting a threat. So
that's why it's called training.
Yeah, exactly. And knowing your failure point now that's what's nice is training is you're learning your failure points to hopefully when time goes south and something has, and what you've been training for actually does happen. Hopefully it never does, but if it does, then you're like, okay, I got this, and you can kind of go back and you fall back on that train, and next time, if hopefully it never happens, but you ever find yourself in a situation where you need to draw your firearm, you get, it's the confidence that you're building in yourself, where if there's a malfunction, I can clear it. If there's something going on, I can clear. If I need to shoot around this barricade, I can do that. Mm-hmm. And so that, and training, it goes twofold. Like, it's not only is it building your confidence, but it's actually it's showing your scars, so, and that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's why I use video too, every time I go to record it, because then I watch it and I see, oh my gosh, this is so wrong. The failure point, that's like you said, you identify where, your failure points are, and next time you go, you work on it. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, like, the more I train, the more inadequate I feel, if that makes sense, because it's I just think there's just so much to still learn and to keep learning, to be to a point where, to feel like, I don't know if anyone ever feels like, because how you can never say how, that you're ready for anything really happening, but you train for it. You train to be as ready as you can be and as safe as you can be.
Exactly.
Well, no, what I heard time and time again in base training was when you're at a certain level of knowledge, you don't know what you don't know. In other words, like, I am so ignorant of the subject, I don't even know what there is left to learn. So in my head, I think I've already got it all figured out. And then when you get about halfway into it, you see where the other end is and realize how much you have left to learn, which I feel like is what you're describing.
Yeah.
When the average gun owner first gets a gun, they watch something on YouTube and think, okay, I'm trained, I know how to use this thing now. And then when they take about 3 training classes, by the end of the third one, they realize, oh God, there's a whole bunch of this I don't know yet, and I haven't figured out, and I have no idea where I'm going to go to get the knowledge. But at least they've gotten to that point where now they know what they don't know, which makes them twice as knowledgeable as they were when they first started, where they didn't know what they didn't know. But I am curious, where did you make the jump from, I want this training, to jumping on Instagram and sharing this very publicly? Because, like, it's one thing to pursue this level of training. It's a totally different thing to basically, like, in front of all the peoples of the internet, put yourself out there. First of all, that you are pursuing this training, but second of all, you don't sugarcoat it. Like, you show the falls, you show yourself covered in mud. Like, there's no hiding the fact that what you're doing is difficult. And like Andrew said earlier, you show your scars, you show your failures on that too, which is, it's unusual for a social media person. But like, what was the push? What was the jump to go from here to there?
So initially it was just like, okay, I'm gonna I had a social media which I didn't use that much. But then, I got my first gun, and then I got into training, and I'm like, I'm gonna just, put something out there. And it wasn't often. It was just like, just something to share initially with kind of like friends and family. But then the more I got into it, then I realized also I had a lot of friends and that own guns, and they just never did any kind of training. And I tried to push them to do it. And I even scheduled, I think one time years ago, I scheduled a class for everybody, just to get them exposed to what, owning a gun and being responsible and safe means. And I did that. And I think it's the realization that there are so many people out there, but not just that, it's especially for women, it's hard to maybe get out there in front of a lot of people because maybe they feel that they are embarrassed or they're not good enough, or if they fail, if they do mistakes, then, or if they don't have someone to go with, they will never make that first step to get out there and seek training. So I realized, this is a tool that I can use to just share my journey, from the very beginning. And maybe someone will see it and see that, it's not that bad, it's it can be done. Or it was just a hope that maybe other women would see that, there are others out there that are training, that are, seeking training and wanting to get better. And hopefully, I don't know, it'll help them make that step into it. And I think at the beginning it was a little hard, just because I was new even to the whole social media. And, there's a lot of negative feedback, keyboard warriors and all that. So I had a lot of that bad, and I was very new to the training too. So, and I was posting a lot of mistakes and failures. So, if you're not, people that don't know you, they'll see, and it still happens today, people will see one video, one picture, and make a whole assumption around your whole life. And but it's not like that. I trained something and I showed that particular video. It doesn't mean that that's the only thing I train. There's a whole other aspect that you don't see in that particular video. But I think that just going back to that, it's the hope that other people, especially women, will see that, it's just get out there and do it. Don't wait for someone to go with you. Don't find an excuse to keep pushing it later and later. Just go out there and train. It's
Just get it done.
Just get it done. Because at the end of the day, even like I've done, most of my classes are with, usually it's like I'm the only girl or there's like another girl. And it was a little, at the beginning, at the very beginning, it was a little scary. But then you realize, everybody's there to train. Nobody looks at you. Everyone's worried about themselves. And everybody's really supportive. So, and I think that's what most women are maybe afraid of, that I've heard from or that I spoke to, is just that just scared, I think, of failing in front of everybody or not doing well or being embarrassed. But you're never going to learn if you don't get, pushed through that.
Do you think that old perception that like firearms training is a big boys club still persists, or is that barrier starting to get broken down the further we go? Because like I personally I started teaching my daughter gun safety when she was 3 or 4 years old. Like she started shooting air rifles when she was 7. She went to the range for the first time when she was 9. Like, for me, like the fact that she is a young lady has nothing to do with whether or not she will at least learn firearms proficiency and safety, because that is just something everybody should know. But I still find that mostly among people that aren't kind of within this world, the firearms community, there is still that perception that, well, it's a boys club. And no amount of me telling them, it might have used to been a boys club, but we would really love for this to be co-ed and y'all to come join us. I can't tell if like we're making headway on that or not.
I think, well, if you look at the industry wise, I think the majority out there, you will see, it's men, in the industry. But like you said, I've, because I have a gun in the house for safety, I've taught her about gun safety from the minute that I had a gun. So I taught her all the rules of firearm safety. she knows what to do, what not to do. I keep it in a safe when I'm here in the house and she's around. But I've taken her to the range with me. It's realized it's not something she's interested right now, but she knows all the safety. And it's funny because it even came out during play with friends, like with toy guns, and they were like playing around with it, with like just the little toy guns. And she told her friend one time, "It's like, you don't put the finger on the trigger until you're ready to shoot."
I
Nice.
love it.
And this is with a
That's good.
toy gun. So, and that was like, someone like, okay, I'm doing something right. So yeah, she knows all about it. Every now and then I ask if she wants to come with me. She's still not interested, but at some point I will make sure that she knows, how to shoot professionally, because it's not a big boys club. I mean, industry wise, like I said, it's mainly like male dominated, but I don't think we're like, I see more and more women out there training. I have a lot of friends here that are, train and are serious about it. So,
And what I like to see too is because like my two nieces that I have, I'm terrified of them going to college, and they're my one niece will be 16 and the other one's 15 or will be 15, and I'm terrified of them getting older just because it's like I'm a guy. I know how men think, and I know the evil that's in the world that's out there, and I want them. And that's the thing is, my one niece is all about guns. She's all about hunting, all that stuff. So I'm glad to see that. The other niece, she's like, nah, not really. But just the whole fact, like with your daughter, just making sure, like as she gets older, okay, we're going to the range. We're going to learn. I'm going to teach you this stuff because it's refused. It's the whole mentality of refuse to be a victim.
exactly. Yeah.
And just like what you were saying, and your force on force, you cleared the malfunction and you were able to win the fight because you had a firearm. And that's the biggest thing. And when I see like the gun control that's they're pushing and stuff like that, um, I can't help but think of like how's this going to impact women, because when certain things are happening, like not only you think of, okay, the gun control they're pushing, it's okay, it's gonna hurt this population, it's gonna hurt us in general. But when a woman can't get a gun, or she can't because there's a waiting period, and she has an abusive husband or boyfriend, whoever, that could be life and death.
It has
And
been life or death.
yeah,
I've heard of those cases. Yeah.
yeah, and so things like that, it's like, well, the woman went to go get a gun, she's on a waiting period, but the estranged person, he beats her and he kills her the next day. It's like, well, if she had that firearm, and it's the great equalizer. The firearm, I don't care. You can be a 300-pound guy, 6'5", 6'7", to someone tiny. I mean, and you can defend yourself, and you can survive that attack because of this object. And that's where like the push annoys me, because it's like, well, the gun is the bad thing. Well, no, it's an object. The evil it's the person holding it. That's the evil person. Whether they had the firearm to make it easier to commit murder is one thing. They could sit there and easily just drive a car through a crowd of people. They can stab people. They can just hands and fists. And so it's the evil in the person's heart and in their mind that's what causes the damage. And that's what causes the evil. And that's what causes the person to do what they want to do. It's not the firearm. The firearm is the great equalizer, to where if these shootings that are happening, if someone had a firearm, how fast would that end? So, and we see it when we see this, we see cases all the time, unfortunately, with these with what's going on, because you have a case where not one person was armed, and the person goes in, they kill a bunch of kids, and they kill people in a mall and stuff like that. Then they go in and they meet somebody that has a firearm on them, and okay, yeah, they still murder a couple people, which is still tragic, but their threat is ended within a few seconds.
Yeah.
And you see it, and it's the great equalizer. It's the thing that we all are on the same playing level when we have that.
Yeah, and that's the thing too with women, because of, if you look the amount of attacks on women too, whether your parking lots, jogging, wherever it is, it is a great equalizer for women. And that's why I think, especially raising like little girls too, it's scary for me too to know that one day she's going to be out there, when she's like a teenager and that going places on her own and, not able to defend herself if she ever gets attacked. So, and I'm always telling her too, and that's like you said, the not a victim mentality. That's absolutely, that's what I've been teaching her forever. It's don't be a victim, just you know pick up a gun, get out and train, do some jujitsu, whatever it is that teach young little girls to put it in their mind from a young age about the not a victim mentality.
Yeah, I mean, so far the only thing, really the big thing that I've pushed on my nieces, and I asked them the other day when I saw them. Ever since they were little, I've always said, like, if anybody ever hurts you, or if you have a boyfriend and he hurts you, what is Uncle Andy going to do? And they're like, murder him. And I said, exactly. I said, I'm going to have to go buy a stock of lye from Menards or Lowe's and dig a ditch. But they know.
Just so we're level setting expectations.
Yes.
But the other thing I'm very preachy about, and I've been doing this with my young daughter for a lot of years, and it's something that like I really espouse other people teaching young teenage women, especially, but really just anybody, is like situational awareness. Like learning, just simply getting your head up out of your cell phone, keeping your head up, keeping it on the swivel, and learning to assess your environment. And being aware of, is somebody, has that person that's behind me been there for the last 3 left turns, whether you're in a car or whether you're on foot. It's just the thing I always preach with my daughter is, I'm like, 90% of people who get into trouble could have avoided that trouble if they'd have been paying attention.
Yes.
So understand up front that, like, a person that gets assaulted or a person that gets grabbed or somebody that gets, if something bad happens, I'm not saying you could have always avoided it. I don't want to victim blame, but I will say that if you're paying attention to your environment, you can usually see it coming. You can see, because a person's hands are where the violence comes from. Either these are the weapons or these are where the weapons are. And the eyes tell you where the hands are going to go. So if you see a person staring very intently at you and moving towards you, they've already given you every clear indication you should pay attention to this person. You should change your direction. You should go to a public place. You should pre-react to the situation. But like I hear way too many parents my age, and I mean I just turned 40. Or I'm about to turn 41 now. Jesus, time flies. But like I hear way too many parents my age that they put the onus on, we need to provide a safe environment, and I'm like, yes, we do, but we also need to teach our kids how to deal with not safe environments.
Yeah.
Because they're going to leave our house one day, and the only thing we can arm them with is 4 inches between their ears that hopefully keeps them out of trouble.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And reality is, once you step foot, you can have a safe environment in the house, but once you step foot outside, you can't control what anyone does around you. So environment may or may not be safe. And reality is, nowadays, we're all on this thing 24/7, walking, parking lots, on the phone. Wherever we walk, we're on the phone, wherever it is, malls or wherever we are. So, and that, like you said, being aware of your surroundings and teaching young girls too, if you're alone, especially if you're alone, you're walking into your car in a parking lot, whether it's day or night, just put that phone down for that 2 minutes, however long it takes to walk to your car and lock the car. Put that phone down and make sure you know what's going on around you. So
yeah, keep your head on a swivel and just keep looking around, because it's
and then you do it a few times and then it just becomes normal. Like now, like I go to, I don't know, airports or malls or wherever I go, it's like I just make it a habit to look around me, and you start noticing things, because I don't know, it's just something stupid. I was at a store, I think a few months ago, and I see this guy. Okay, I see him one time. He's right there and I'm looking at something and I see him he just gives me a look. And then I move on to another section and he's there again. I'm like, okay, coincidence. I move to another section of the store. He's there again and again. And it happens a 5th time. I'm like, I don't like this. And then I go to the checkout and I purposely just stall, and I see him walking out the store. He still looks at me, and I'm like, and then he walks back in. And at that moment when I see him walking back in and going, I'm like, I exit the store and I look around me and I get into the car and I lock the car. And it was just these things that you start, you practice that being aware of your surroundings. It's important because I don't know, this was daylight in a parking lot, but stuff happens.
Right. And I mean, and whether that's him just being a creeper, or,
Right, yeah.
you don't know his intentions. And the thing is, though, is abductions are high. Human trafficking is a thing. And you see it. Unfortunately, the media doesn't report on it as much as I think they should be doing. But you'll see surveillance video of women going to their car and van comes up and they get pushed in, or the big thing was guys running up saying, "Help my baby!" I don't know what's wrong with my baby, to a woman, and they're gone. That happens, and so having your head out of your phone and having your head on a swivel and noticing that kind of things like what you just did. Yeah, he might have just, you don't know what his intentions were, but you saw him, you noticed him, and you were acting accordingly. And a lot of the times, and sometimes I've read cases to where, like, once they're noticed and once they're busted, they sometimes they'll disregard. Sometimes they won't, but you noticed them and you're ready for them.
And like you said, once you notice them, they'll know that you've noticed, and they would, like I said, maybe they won't, maybe they'll still go ahead with, if they have any ill intention, but most of the times, if you make it known that you've noticed them, they will just steer off and maybe hit, maybe they'll go to their next target. I don't know, but that's the thing about being aware of the surroundings. And it's happened other times before where you're just kind of noticing things. And, when it happens, I went to my car, but I had my hand on my gun that I was concealing. And I'm like, if he tries anything, at least I'm going to,
Right. And that's the thing is, like, I've noticed ever since I've gotten my concealed carry permit and stuff, I've noticed I'll pay attention to how I walk out with my groceries. So if I have a lot of groceries, I'll have a cart, obviously. But if I only have like maybe one or two bags, I'll have the bags like in my left hand since I'm right-handed. I'll make sure that my dominant hand is clear, in case I have to draw or something. And so, like, I've noticed I've changed how I've done a couple things because of that mindset. And even just looking at hands, looking at body language, it's like what you said, walking around the mall. I love people watching. And it's been a long time since I've been to the mall, but I mean, when I used to work in the mall in college, I would sit there and just sit there at lunch and just people watch and watch their mannerisms, watch their actions, watch their hands, watch the body language, just read off people. And it was really interesting. I had a coworker of mine. We used to play a game of who's on a first date. And you would go to, like, after work or something, we'd go to a bar and we'd just kind of sit there and chill. And we would sit there and we'd start picking couples. And we'd be like, okay, how many dates do you think they're at? Or do you think they're married? And so but that trains you to look at the hand, look for a ring. Okay, now look at the body language. Is he leaning in? Is she leaning in? Like, is she back being repulsed or whatever? Like, the reactions on the face. Like, to me, like, that got me thinking, like, on how to read people. And plus it was a fun game because some people you saw that was like super awkward. I was like, oh man, that was a first date if I ever saw one. But then there are some other ones you're like, they've been married for like a decade.
And I remember the other time it happened is years and years ago when I was flying somewhere, and it might even be 15 years ago or something. And I was doing a layover in Dubai. So I worked in Dubai for a few years. I lived there for a few years, but this is after that.
Oops.
I had a layover in Dubai and I had like half a day. So I just went to the mall there. It was the new mall that opened at the time. And I realized there was this guy that was following me around everywhere, every floor. He was always behind me. But at the time, anyway, I was flying. I didn't have anything on me. I wasn't even into firearms yet, but it's just one of the things that, like, being self-aware, aware of your surroundings, you try and figure out a plan to do or go around people, because you realize there's someone actually following you and he keeps staring at you. So it's just scary. I was there alone too, in a country that you don't even know. Um, and yeah, so
What? So what got you into because you've been doing jiu-jitsu, correct?
yeah.
So what got you into that? Was that force on force class that kind of got you thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, being paired with someone who's like way bigger than me and like stronger, and it was like I literally found myself, and I posted that video. I literally found myself under him. I was the one with the gun, but I could not physically get him off me, and he ended up pulling the gun from, I think I was concealed carrying it right here, and he ended up pulling the gun, and that was made me realize, yeah, I need to get at least learn, especially being a woman. It's like, you may get attacked, and yeah, you may have a gun, but it doesn't mean, if someone attacks you from like that close and just jumps on you, you have a gun, but they may be just physically stronger and get that gun off of you. So it's going to be no good to
Hmm.
keep it alive, if that's the
Yeah,
case.
and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is one of those rare combat forms that's not, it's not as dependent on physical strength. So
Yeah.
like I I love to see women get into that because like, just by the averages, women tend to be a little more petite, not quite as muscly as men, and we prefer it that way. But it's just one of those situations where like there's usually a disparity in strength, there's usually a
Mhm.
disparity in bone mass, there's usually a disparity in raw size and height. And in something like that, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu doesn't care. Like it's all based around leverage. It's all based around balance.
Mhm.
It's like the perfect martial art for it is the perfect martial art developed by a group of people who were substantially smaller than the people they were fighting against. So I mean, it's yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I wish honestly more people that are self defense minded would take a look at martial arts.
Yeah.
As I say that, not having stepped foot in a school for 25 years.
But it. There was another realization I had, and doing the classes that I have been. There's a woman who's a police officer, and she said that I think she got to, when she started years ago, she got to actually use it. I think a couple weeks later, and it helped her keep the subject mobilized long enough to get additional help. Whereas if she hadn't, had that training, even for like a couple of weeks, I don't know if it was weeks or months, but if she hadn't had that kind of training, it probably wouldn't, it wouldn't have gone the way that it did. And she's small, she's petite too. Like you said, it just helps you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't look at size. It's leverage, technique, how to, and I think more women need to like get into it and learn that too.
Well, and I find that everything you're talking about, the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, firearms training, like the one thing that I feel like we all skipped around earlier when you were talking about the creeper in the store was that yes, you were concerned, yes, you were assessing your situation, but you didn't describe yourself as being panicked. Like you thought through the situation, you've considered your options, you strategically waited for him to position himself where you wanted him to be before you took action. And I think that is like I feel like that is what is born out of the volume of training you've done is confidence. You are not as quick to be afraid, therefore you continue to think through the problem. You approach a self-defense situation like a math problem, not like the life or death situation it could turn into. It is all about how do I position myself the best to get out of the situation without being harmed. And I feel like that is the thing that people are missing when they don't train is they react fearfully to those situations. And fear and panic makes us do really boneheaded things.
Bad, yeah. Yeah, it's true, and that's I think that's been the main thing out of all this is the confidence that it builds in situations like this. It's kind of, that you're, at least you're trained enough to be ready mentally, if anything happens. But like you said, trying to look at situations more strategically, or like you said, kind of like a math problem where, like, first of all, yeah, it's like the fear wasn't there. It was more of a, okay, there's someone here, there's someone that's, I don't know what his intentions are, so let's think about this, what's the best. And it wasn't even a thought that I had like that. It was, I think it just comes naturally at a certain point where you just try and get yourself out of that situation before it escalates to anything worse. So definitely confidence building gets you to that point. And yeah, because I've been in situations with fear, and man, it's not good because your brain just does bad decisions, weird things when you're afraid.
Oh, you just blank. I mean, and that's the one thing. Like, I mean, when I was in a fire department for a couple of years, just going to a scene, car accident, whatever it was, a medical fire. That I'm thankful for that time that I had with the department to train, because the training really helped me with stress. To be able to go into a scene and think logically and think clearly, and not get that tunnel vision. I'm not saying I don't get tunnel vision. I still do, with certain things, but to be able to go in and actually clear your mind and think. And that's the one thing that, with where I work, I try to pass that on to some of the newer guys that are in, and saying, hey, like, when you go on this medical, like, just, if you need to take a step back, think, go back to your training, but think, open it up, get out of that tunnel vision. And I teach CPR, and that's one of the things that I push when I teach CPR is, just, okay, if you have to take that extra second to, okay, this is what's happening, and then, okay, this is what I got to do, and just get out of that tunnel vision. Whatever you got to do to get out of that tunnel vision, just try to get out of it and think logically, think clearly, and go back to your training. And that's a big thing. And with all the training that you've been doing too, I mean, I'm sure that helps. And that's where just training in general comes from. The more times you do it, the more repetitions you get, the better that your mind is going to fall back to that last level of training.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I'm out at the range twice a week. Sometimes it's just 30 minutes. I made just like 2 magazines just to get, sometimes it's just, I don't know, working on drawing from conceal and getting, hits on a target. And sometimes it's as simple as that. Other times I try and look back at classes I've taken, things that I've learned, because I have like video from it, and kind of I'm like, it's been a while that I haven't practiced this. Let's do it. Let's try and remember it and like do it again here on my own. And so I do that. And malfunction, I go back to malfunctions every now and then, and just several things. And one of the things that I know, like, we all carry, especially like we are all supposed to carry medical, a medical kit, but I'm like, what's the use of carrying it if we don't know how to use the things? And I'm guilty of it. I mean, I've done a few classes, medical, tech med classes, but not enough for me to even remember, if this is the kind of injury, I'm gonna be there. If anything happens and it's like someone is injured in front of me, if it's something that I don't remember what I need to apply, I'm gonna be there, like, trying to remember, like, what do I need to do here? What do I do here? So I'm not, that's something that I need to keep at it. I need to like do more classes for that. And definitely, because I've done a couple, but it's not enough.
And honestly, I personally think medical is one place that everybody's lacking, really. You can never get enough of, besides firearm. I mean, you put holes in stuff, we need to know how to patch holes too.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is you might not be the one putting holes in somebody. You might be at the mall, and something bad happens, and you need to be able to patch those holes and know. So yeah, having that knowledge never hurts. And and I actually got that cat.
I saw the whiskey face on that cat. I've never seen a cat make that face before, but I have now seen it.
Sorry, I just had to.
Okay. No, that's funny. No, really quick. I just it was funny because I have an ankle kit that I carry every day. It's on me. Even at work, we have med kits, but I carry an ankle kit. I have couple eye packs in my truck. I got a medical kit in my truck, stuff like that. But this ankle kit, if I'm not wearing shorts, it's on me.
Mm-mm.
And my buddy and I went to Detroit to a Tigers game, and I took the trauma shears out because I figured those would get confiscated.
Mm-mm.
God forbid you have trauma shears. And the guy, I go through the metal detector and it beeps, and he goes, "What, you got anything on you?" I'm like, "I have this." I pulled out I carry a stiletto flashlight, Surefire flashlight on me every day. I'm like, "I got this." He goes, "What is that?" And I go, "It's a flashlight." And he goes, "Oh, is anything else on you?" I'm like, "Well, I got a med kit on my ankle." And he goes, "A med kit on your ankle? What do you mean?" So he's like, "Show me." So I pulled up my pant leg and I'm showing him, and he goes, "What's that?" And he points to it, my tourniquet. I'm like, "Well, that's a tourniquet." He goes, "What's that?" I go, "Well, that's an extra flashlight."
Mm.
And he goes, "Well, what's this?" And I'm like going over everything. He's like, "Do you have any scissors in there?" I said, "No, I knew those are gonna. You can't have those, duh. Like if I would have kept the scissors, I would have had my knife, you know." And so yeah, but it was just funny because he's like, "Why do you have that?" I'm like,
"Why don't you have that?"
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I kind of like gave him the just in case something bad happens and I need to help somebody, just do something. And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool, you're good." And I'm like, I'm happy he didn't make like a bigger fuss about it, but it's just interesting because it's like, why do you have that? Well, why do you like? Why not? Everybody should have them.
Yeah, like I carry medical on me, tourniquet on me, and then I have a set in the car.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I know how to use a tourniquet. But a lot of the other type of injuries, like I said, I may have trained them twice, and I'm just not proficient, or I'm probably not going to remember what to use for what. So I just need to do more of that because, like you said, it's not just if someone hurts me. It's like you said, it could be anyone around you. Someone else gets hurt. They need help before actual professional medical help arrives. And so
I've told Andrew before, I used to have about an 86-mile commute round trip that I'd make 5 days a week. And in the 7 years I was making that commute before we started working remote during COVID and everything, I've been the first on scene of 3 separate car accidents. Where like there might have been another motorist stop, but there was no state trooper, there was no ambulance, there was no fire. It was just a whole bunch of regular people trying to help out. And I tell everybody to this day, I'm like, that's 3 times in 7 years. All 3 of those times there were no injuries, thank God. But all 3 of those times, I've got a whole blowout kit sitting on the roof of my truck filled with tourniquets and chest seals and, Israeli bandages and quick clot, everything else you can think of, on top of water and blankets and everything else I keep in the vehicle just in case. Now, in 7 years commuting, I've had to pull a handgun exactly 0 times. But 3 times I might have needed medical.
That just shows like it's something that we should all train more of.
Yep. And that's not like mass shooting, terrorist attack, or crazy stuff. That's car accidents.
Yeah, I know. So I don't know. I feel, I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of disappointed in myself. I just need to do more of that.
Nope, you just found a training scar that you got to brush up on, though.
Yeah, I have to. We touched on it in the last injured shooter we did, but I had done a full-on tech med, but that's like 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. So like you said, like I do the training twice a week, it's repetition, right? So medical too, it's a skill that is forgotten if you don't keep at it.
Yeah. And one thing, just a couple of things before we start wrapping up. One thing that I know I have some friends that do is with their kids and stuff, like with your daughter, like toss her a tourniquet and say, "Mom just got injured in the leg," or, you slipped and maybe you cut yourself in the leg or something happened, and hey, put this tourniquet on me. And, stuff like that. It's like, even with, just to try to include your daughter with it. And I know people that have done that with their kids, but even then, I mean, I know when I took I don't know if you know what, Dark Angel, if you're familiar with them at all. I took one of their classes, and every single person had a tourniquet that they issued at the beginning of the class. And randomly throughout the class, the instructor would be like, "Left arm." And you had to like basically drop everything, throw that tourniquet on your left arm. Then he'd sit there and be, "Okay, right leg." And so like he would just call out different different parts of the body there. Well, junctions anyway. Arms and legs, because obviously we can't put her on the neck, unfortunately.
You
But,
can.
could.
You can use tourniquets for head wounds.
You can, yeah. But yeah. So that was interesting. But so before we wrap it up, I do want to ask your patches.
Oh,
Your you post them online every once in a while, but I laugh every time I see them. But eat ass, sling brass, aim center mass.
yeah.
Oops, sorry. Beep.
I'll be back. Can you give me like a second? I want to run and be back.
Yeah. Earmuffs.
Come on, Uncle Andrew. You know how this works. You have to say earmuffs first.
Yeah. Well, I don't have kids, so I always forget.
You have me, and I think like a child.
So this honestly started as a.
Where did the thought come from, though? With that and then your QR code one, like, where did those come from?
Both of them started as jokes with friends. So this is that one, right?
That one, yeah.
This is the first one. It started as a joke with a friend. It's kind of like, I don't even remember, but it was a joke. And then I used kind of his silhouette on this. And then I think his buddies saw it and they wanted. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try making it a patch. So, and then his buddies wanted it, and then I'm like, I tried putting it on my Instagram page, and everybody wanted one. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna order a bunch. So I still have, a bunch available, and I'm gonna order a bunch. And I sold out, I think 3 times, and I think both 3 times I had like 100 patches. And I didn't have them available for a while. I just got a new batch, so I still have plenty. And then this one was also a joke.
I'm not going to repeat that one. I learned my lesson.
No.
This one was also a joke. So
do not point an iPhone camera at that QR code right now unless you're by yourself.
So this is one of the 2 I have. But that was also a joke, and I did the QR on an app, then I sent it, and they laughed, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna make a patch of it. So then, man, it did really, really well. So I have this one, and I have another version of it, kind of for the female version of it, which I carry on my range belt. So I have patches and the stickers. So it was just random jokes that turned into, I don't know, successful patches.
That's good. I was just curious. I've always wondered. I've always wondered, though. That's why I'm asking. And I apologize for forgetting about little ones. But
no, that's fine. She's over there anyway. But then I have these are the 2 patches, and I have a couple of stickers that have a different saying.
Uh-huh.
Especially for and I have my magazine has a QR code on it that just, if you put the phone on it, it just says "Slap me harder, Daddy." You just slap the magazine in really well. So yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, geez. I need to get. I need to buy some of those because I have places I want to put them.
Yeah, it's funny because some of the people that bought them are like in the police officers.
Oh Lord.
Someone actually told me they bought them and they stuck them on their colleagues' cars or lockers, and I'm like, oh, this is perfect.
Yeah, I can already. I have a couple places at work I'd love to put one, but man, I could just see the HR email. But no. So, but wrapping up here, where can people find you?
I'm literally just Instagram, so I don't have YouTube or anything else, but Instagram, bonbons and guns. So yep, that's pretty much it. That's where I do all my stuff. I try to maybe branch into other ones, but no, it's just too much time. So, and I have the link to the website where I sell these patches in my Instagram bio too.
Okay, yeah, we'll make sure we get that information and links and stuff and for the when this goes out to audio and everything too. So, But well, cool. Well, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate you. I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of it kind of just happened because I made that meme, and then all of a sudden I was like, "Hey, would you want to come on?"
I know. Oh my gosh, that meme! I laugh. I still laugh when I look at it. It was perfect.
Yeah, me not being aware of what was going on, I was literally just scrolling through the messages on Instagram, and I see that whole conversation. I'm like, that I don't remember having this conversation. Oh, Andrew. Oh, Andrew.
Yeah, that's my other big thing. I like meme, and I actually got myself, and I made myself a patch, custom patch. It says "Meme Mommy."
Meme.
So.
Well, I need to start tagging you because I steal a lot of your memes. But
Hey, everybody steal memes. It's good. I steal
yeah,
memes. Yeah.
no, it's great. It's awesome. But no, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate you making time.
Of course, and thank you for having me. Yeah,
Oh,
appreciate it.
it's totally our pleasure. I appreciate you coming on and keep doing the good work. I mean, if you can drag one more person kicking and screaming to the range to get better trained, I call that a win.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
That's pretty much it. Mm-mm.
Well, Matter of Fact's podcast heading out the door. Say goodnight, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.